Welcome to the Atypical Artist. Today's creation is the legendary Excalibur, the sword in the stone. I have this old piece of wood from a previous project that I'll use for my base, and I have some scraps of XPS foam to create the stone, and the strip of wood that I will use to make the sword Excalibur. I have cut several pieces of XPS into smaller pieces, stacking and hot gluing them into something that resembles a large stone. I add some scraps of XPS to fill in any of the large voids, and once I am happy with how it looks, I trim off the hard edges and begin to carve out the final shape of the stone. The inspiration for this build comes from a movie that has been in my top 3 ever since I watched it back in entitled Excalibur. After I watched, I immediately fell in awe with anything medieval, from the armor, the weapons and horses, to the artwork, clothing, the architecture, and illuminated manuscripts. It's all awesome to me and total inspiration for today's build. So let's get back to it. I mixed together some water, black gesso, and plaster, and brush it into any seams or gaps that look unnatural. This will give me a nice hard surface that my paint will easily adhere to. I got to thinking, and there is no way a sword could possibly pierce a stone so perfectly not to damage it, crack it. I want to add some realism here. You know, I am making a stone in a forest diorama. So in my little world, Excalibur pierced the stone and knocked the bottom out of it, leaving rubble laying on the forest floor. Off camera, I cut the wood in half and glued the 2 pieces together. After trimming it down to the size I want, I sanded to the shape of a sword blade. With a small round file, I begin to carve out the fuller. This is a new word for me. Fuller is the concave line that runs the length of a sword blade. Not all swords have a fuller. However, in this build, mine does. Every decent sword has a guard, and Excalibur is no exception. I take some sculpty polymer clay and I begin to form the rough shape of the guard. After baking the clay in the oven, I let it cool down for a little bit and take some sandpaper and some files and begin to carve out the final shape of the guard. I went through my bits box and found some guitar and bass strings and some metal bits that look like little spatulas. So I glue these to the top and bottom of the guard, and then I carve a little bit of the handle away so that I can glue on this small plastic ring as part of the grip. I take one of the bass string ends and use that metal bit for part of the pommel. I have this small white perloid type bead that I will glue on to the end and later sand down and carve it into a different shape. Here I am painting on a base coat of black gesso onto the sword and onto the rocks. As you can see here, I am beginning to shape the pommel using sandpaper and a file. The goal is to get a shape similar to that of a seashell, minus any of the ridges you would find on a seashell. Instead, I'm looking more for a fanned out shape. I picked up some paints from the store. I've never used color shift paint before. I thought it would be a really good idea for the sword blade. I also picked up some brushed steel paint, which I will use for the base coat of the sword blade and the guard. Using the color shift paint, I apply the final coat onto Excalibur's blade. I then take some black paint and I mix it with the color shift and paint the guard, giving some contrast between the guard and the blade. To make the grip for the sword, I am using this thin strip of leather and wrapping it around the handle and securing it in place with some crazy glue. Off camera, I painted the base black and glued the XPS foam to the base. I am randomly painting on some brown tones, purple and green, to give some variation of color for the stone. To make the stone stand out, give it more depth and realism, I've mixed some white paint into my brown and purple that I will dry brush onto the stone. For the landscape, I am using some watered down blue, which I paint onto the stone in areas where I think that moss would naturally grow. I decided that there should be a path where some onlookers can walk past and look at the famous sword in the stone. So with some watered down glue, some sand and some pebbles, I make a path. To add some color to the diorama, I decided to grab some leaves from outside, crush them up, and spread them along the path. So I forgot to paint the gravel underneath, and I glued everything on top of it. So here I just watered down some brown paint and applying it to areas to dull down the brightness of the white and pink sand that I used. The last thing I'm doing here is spraying on a dark wash that will give it more of a dank and dirty look to it.
Come on, Arthur. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to see more videos, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you know when new videos come out.